Welcome to the Abe Legal Podcast. This is Talib Kareem Muhammad, the host of the podcast and the CEO of Abe Legal. We're excited to be joined by an illustrious attorney out of the Boston area, someone who is in his own right a scholar, an activist, and a businessman who is bringing all of these different experiences to bear on his work in personal injury, tenants' rights, business law, and many other areas of the law. We're really looking forward to an exciting conversation, both about Jay, his background, his career, and of topical events taking center stage today, both here in Washington and around the country. Get ready for an exciting conversation, and don't forget to like, subscribe, comment if you have any questions that you want Jay to answer on air. And if the program concludes and you still have questions, don't hesitate to put those into the comments, and you can count on us following back up with you. And again, if you know other people either in Boston or around the country who have questions relating to legal matters, don't hesitate to share those this particular podcast with them so we can get those questions answered. So without any further ado, stand by and get ready for a great conversation. Good morning, Jay. And, I'm, kind of really, focused on making sure I get people's, names correct, because my name has had an evolution, if you will. So can you give me the correct pronunciation of your first name to start off with?
Absolutely. So the correct pronunciation is called Jahangir.
Jahangir.
People shortened it down to John Gear, and then essentially the word J came out. So now it's J.
No, I understand Jahangir. And, tell me, what does Jahangir mean? And what's the kind of origin? Is it, Pakistani, Indian, Afghan?
Well, it's actually a mixture. So it's actually Iranian. So if you go way back, so it comes from that region. And it kind of means to have like the world like in your hand kind of deal. Mm-hmm. So it seems like I have a lot of responsibilities that I need to fill with my name. Hence, I guess I fell into the legal profession, right? This is divine power that works, and I guess that is the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. So everything has a reason behind it.
Excellent. So, I always like to start off our conversations like, kind of diving into a favorite book. And if this was a book about the making of Jahangir, J. Zaheer, attorney at law, how would the chapters between law school and now read in a kind of synopsis, an elevator pitch for that particular book?
So, I'm going to give you like a little bit of background about myself. So I am not that attorney that went straight shot from high school to, to college, to undergrad. I had a lot of ups and downs along the way. I grew up in New York. My background is from New York. I grew up in Brentwood, New York. So, it was in the most lucrative neighborhood, if you can kind of understand what I'm saying. With that being said, it is, had a lot of difficulties in the path that I chose to get here. I can say right after college, I jumped right into the legal profession and with a passion. I wanted to learn the law. There's a lot of things that went down in my neighborhood that weren't done the right way, the legal way, and so on and so forth. And I saw that firsthand. So I wanted to make sure that I'm able to do and represent my community in the way that it kind of needed to be done. So that is one of the reasons that I wanted to kind of go into law. And again, right after college, I started working in the legal field. I've been working in the legal field since then as a paralegal. Started off in New York, and then made my transition over to college here in Massachusetts. I finished up my school here, finished up my degree in computer science and also criminal justice, and been on my way since then. Law school, worked as a litigation manager for a big firm in Boston for quite some time, and then decided to start my career in law school. I wanted to make sure that if I'm going to invest the kind of money that I invest into an education, I want to make sure I understand what I'm getting into. You'll be surprised how many attorneys actually end up going into the field and put these student loans on them, and then essentially don't even end up practicing because they don't like what they're doing. So I wanted to make sure that what I'm doing is something that I want to do and that I want to get into with all the background that I need to know to be able to make this decision. So that's kind of how my college to kind of synopsis is now. Since then, I've built a practice with regards to dealing specifically with complex legal matters that I help my clients out with. Dealing with real estate, personal injury, estate planning, and a wide variety of litigation. So I feel that once you have a background built on passion for the law, then the doors open up for you. I hope I didn't go too much into different tangents here, but I like kind of talking about that.
No, I think it's exciting. And, tell me a little bit in terms of how it was making that transition from working for someone else to working on your own. I mean, I'm saying this to, provide other people who are looking forward to launching their own business and brand, because of course, that these are really one and the same. Tell me, if you could, in a kind of a methodical way, how did you go about, kind of laying the foundation for the launch of, your brand, and give us some metrics, if you will, for the time since you've been in business on your own.
Okay.
And in fact, one other question I was going to pose to you is, kind of shine a little light on your partner or your associate. If you can give us a synopsis of how you guys met
Sure.
and how that's been like.
Excellent. Okay, so a couple of things. So let's start with the latter one that you talked about with the partner. So Shabnam, who's my partner, and I actually met through another friend of ours. She went to school with me. Shabnam went to a different school, and we ended up loving real estate. That was one of my passions that I went into when I was in law school as well. I actually owned the multifamily, so I was very intrigued with the law. I wanted to know what the landlord tenant is, because a lot of people don't understand that the law is not real estate. It's completely different. It's a complete different animal than real estate conveyancing, which is the closings of houses. So it's completely different. But that's how Shabnam and I met. We clicked so well. She comes from a similar background. She's a very bright girl, very, very bright girl, and knows her stuff. Comes from the same background that kind of we do. We weren't given the silver spoon kind of in the mouth, like, here you go, this is what you need to do. We have to build up to what we needed to do. As far as building a brand, man. So the advice that I can give to someone as far as building a brand is be kind, and don't be arrogant. Kindness will get you so far. It will open up doors for you. Like, I mean, people come out of law school and they're like, I've done my dues, right? People are entitled. I've done my dues. I did my ethics exam. I passed that. I took the bar exam, the 2-day exam. I passed that. So now what? You know what? I'm an attorney and I'm going to go in there and I got to do what I need to do. And I don't really care. These people that are the clerks, they're not lawyers. So you know what? I have a higher degree and that's the way I'm going to propose it. So, things of that nature, I would say humble down, get to know the staff. They're your friends. If you need anything done in this world, it's not the judges that are going to do it, it's the clerks. So I would say always leave the ego aside. You can have that little one moment where you can thank God and be like, what, thank you, God, for everything you've done for me, and give yourself a little pat on the back. But walking around with that entitledness is not going to get you far in life. So kindness, politeness, please and thank yous. I teach my kids this all the time. Please and thank yous will get you so far in life. Brand recognition is, you got to treat the clients right. There is no shortcut about it. If you do not treat the clients right, the reviews are so quick, especially nowadays in today's world. It's just a click, 1 star, boom, done, right? And it's the attorney's reputation that's tarnished. Albeit it's fine. People are entitled to do what they want to do, but sometimes it's not true. Sometimes it is true. Sometimes it's not. So how do you handle those things where it kind of comes down to? So specifically, you got to be nice to people. Make sure you understand their concern. You really need to be able to understand the concern. I see nowadays a lot of counsels out there are more concerned about how much billable can I get out of this, right? That's not my mentality. I've never had that mentality. My goal is to try to see if I can resolve this case the fastest way possible with as little cost and time associated to my client. They came to me with a problem. They don't. And here's the other thing too, and I keep going off in these tangents. I love talking and talking about these things in general. No one really calls their lawyer to be like, hey, happy Friday. Hope you're having a good day. Talk to you later. Bye. It's always, I have an issue. I got a problem. So we as attorneys are trained to put out fires. Does that kind of make sense? So we're constantly bombarded with problems, and we are given, I guess, our retainer, and then we're expected to be like, hey, take over my problems, and that's it. And which is fine to a certain extent, but we also need the clients to be able to provide us with the information that we need. And here's the other part that separates us, right? In order to get that information, you need to be able to ask the right questions. You can't ask the tenant or a plaintiff or whoever it is that you're representing in the situation. Well, okay, get me over, the discovery documents, get me over this, that, and third, and then expect them to fully understand, because they're not in the legal field and they're hiring you for a reason. So the little bit of hand holding goes a long, long way. And the clients like that because they came to you for a certain reason, and you should be able to guide them all the way through. So that is one of the things that I kind of hone in on when I talk to my clients. I make sure I understand their situation, and I will be honest with them. If they screwed up, I'll tell them, hey, I'm sorry. I hate to be the person that brings it to you, but my job is to safeguard you. And this is what I see as a liability. This, and this. We need to fix this before we need to do this. So it has to be methodical. Attorneys generally take in an intake. They talk to them. They don't even talk to the clients. The clients don't know who the real attorney is. It's just the person behind the paperwork. That is not what you can have if you're trying to build your brand and have the clients work with you, because essentially this is a word of mouth referral. You will get so many people from referrals from doing the right thing with one person. You will see the calls come in. It's just unbelievable how it works if you treat the clients the right way.
And on that note, let's dive in a little bit on the work that you've done with Abe Legal and recently helping a entrepreneur, like many of us, not somebody who quit his 9 to 5, but someone who is working,
Yes.
but is trying to generate some passive income.
Correct.
By purchasing a parcel of land, a home, and renting it out. And he ran into some challenges. Can you talk a little bit about the challenges, without divulging any, attorney-client protected information?
Absolutely.
But just, in general, talk a little bit about
general. No problem.
this particular case, and as an example of how this happens, because again, he's really, probably similar to many of us who are out here trying to make additional passive income, and he ran into some roadblocks that he probably did not anticipate, and tried to resolve it on his own, and then ultimately had to find an attorney, which was very difficult for him to actually find you. You were really a needle in a haystack, but clearly a blessing that we were able to locate you for him. But dive in a little bit to his particular case,
Sure.
your work on behalf of real estate owners.
Absolutely. So this particular gentleman does not reside in the state that I reside in, but owns a property out here. We have a lot of those that actually, end up buying a property, lived here for a little while, and then, things happen in life, changed and like moved somewhere else, or bought a property as an investment property and still don't reside in here. So his issue was more like hands-on, like people needed to be here. He was getting the runaround as to what needed to be done. Albeit, I don't think he was able to completely explain the situation to whoever he might have spoken to in the past completely. And again, that's what I was talking about, right? Where you need to, as an attorney or as good counsel, you need to be able to elicit that information from them, right? You need to be able to ask the right questions to be able to get the proper answers for you to be able to make an educated decision as to how you're going to proceed in a particular matter. His case was not that complex. It was just a couple of things that were intertwined together that needed to be separated and fixed out. So in this situation, the tenant had called the city the inspectional services. They came in and cited him, and then didn't basically give access, was not communicative. There was a leak that transpired from his unit into a downstairs tenant's unit. The downstairs tenant unit complained about it. Again, our client wasn't given access to get into the unit to be able to fix it. Now we got the inspectional services coming after him. They're trying to charge him criminally. Then we have the downstairs tenant who got a judgment against my client because my client wasn't able to fix the issue that was going on. We had to clean a bunch of different things up. So it was basically trying to, you write these things down methodically and you break it down. And that's the main thing an attorney should do. You write the problems down, and this is what you teach you in law school. You forget about the red herrings and you pick the most important parts and you go at them. So in his scenario, there was 3, right? Because it seems so complex, but it's 3. 1, contact the attorney for the landlord downstairs whose unit got messed up or destroyed or whatever it was. Figure out a negotiation, figure out ascertain what the damages were, forget receipts, right? Because as a judgment, it was one-sided. My client wasn't there. Figure out what that is, get them out, get the judgment satisfied, file a satisfaction, and that's done, over, off the credit. Just to give you an idea of like the craziness in each case is never the same. Everything has a different little nuance attached to it. This one, the gentleman actually took pictures of the judgment, made big signs that my client is a deadbeat and doesn't pay his judgment, and started posting these signs all over the building and on the tenant's door. So we had to evict the tenant that was there, got this person out. Additionally, this person was not being cooperative with the realtor because my client was trying to rent this out again. It's a very lucrative property located in the main part of Boston where it's worth a lot of money, rental-wise. We're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars, okay? So he was trying to not have that gap between the tenant moving out and with the new tenant coming in. So showing was an issue, clearly, because access was not being provided by the tenant. Finally got the tenant out. We cleared away the issue with the judgment, in the process of finalizing that now. And then in addition to that, we got in touch with the Boston Housing Court, which is the one that takes over the inspectional services, and they issue what's called a probable cause, which is basically now you're being charged criminally if this hearing happens, saying that you're not doing anything and you're ignoring the inspectional services order to fix the property, right? So you can see how these things can tack on real quickly. And another addition that he was dealing with, because of the tactics of the tenants, they scared the realtor away. And I'm not sure if you know, but there's a new law that's changed as far as a realtor being able to collect fees, their realtor commission from the buyer or from the landlord or from the tenant. It has to be in writing and so on and so forth. And now he's responsible to pay for the agent's fee. Does that kind of make sense? So he's lost so much money based on the fact that he couldn't get the unit turned around in time. He's lost another month in there. He lost money with regards to the judgment that he had to do. So again, these are all, at this point in time, when he got to me, these things were already done, right? Most of them, I had to handhold and make sure all these things are brought to fruition. And they did.
Now let me ask you if you could dive into some of these changes you just mentioned in terms of the, rental laws there. Like what? How did this happen? How did this evolve? I mean, and I certainly am sympathetic to the rights of renters. I do think that for example, the housing costs here in DC is too damn high. I think it's out of control. And I'm not quite sure whether or not some of these laws were directed to address that, but it would only seem to me some of these laws would actually make prices go even higher. How did this happen? I recently know that there's a man in my network, one of our mentors, is running for Boston City Council. Oh, nice. His name is Minyard Culpepper, and he actually, I think it was District 14. I'm not quite sure if that's the same district where you are, but he ran and succeeded to become the top, one of the top 2 vote getters. And so there's going to be a runoff, as I understand. But, nice. What's going on in Boston that has made it so difficult for, entrepreneurs such as the one who you're helping in this case?
So the law change is twofold. One of them I'll talk about as far as sales are concerned, realtor and so on and so forth. And the other one I'm going to talk about as far as the shifting of the commission. So it was unclear before as to who's paying for what commission. There was confusions as to okay, a landlord has a realtor that is responsible to bring in a realtor, bring in a tenant. So who's paying for that realtor? Is it the tenant that's coming in? Is that person going to pay for the realtor that the landlord hired? Or who's going to pay that person's commission? That is what's kind of changed. So if you have your own agent, like as a tenant, you have your own agent and you're looking for it, the tenant, needs something in writing with that agent saying that you're going to be paying that person's commission. Okay. Same thing as far as a landlord who's trying to rent a unit out. If you have your own agent, you can't pass on the buck and be like, all right, well, get a realtor, get a tenant, and whoever tenant you get will pay for your realtor fee. So now the onus is on the landlord that is putting it on the market through an agent. The landlord will pay their listing agent's fee. So that's a shift right there, right? So that's one. The second shift is the one that you're talking about that affects the housing prices. That being said, the law changed where the buyer is no longer allowed to negotiate the waiver of an inspection as a negotiation tactic. Does that kind of make sense? And that's big if you think about it, right? So now the law is, remember, so in offer, so I'm a realtor as well. So that's why I love real estate. I'm surrounded by it. I'm so involved in it. So the law is when you're making an offer, on the offer, you're going to put down all the terms that you want, right? Specifically, including if you want an inspection done or not, right? If you do an inspection, you say, I want to get an inspection done. I'll get it done within 10 days and so on and so forth. Now, that law has changed where you are not allowed to do that. You are given as a matter of right now as a buyer to perform that inspection. So you cannot use, well, you know what? Give me this property or let me get this property and I'm waiving my inspection as a contingency to make my offer more lucrative versus like the first time home buyers that are coming in and don't want to, because I do seminars at first time home buyers and I always tell them, do not waive an inspection. You are not sure what you're buying. And I would never, ever waive an inspection. If you are so bent on buying this house, then why don't you put in this pre-law now, because it's changed, put in where it will be done for informational purposes only, right? So it's not impacting the seller's decision when they're like, oh, you know what? They're going to do an inspection. They're going to come back with X wrong, Z wrong, Y wrong. And now we have to go back and negotiate the purchase price. So that's how the kind of things come into play. Now you can also imagine where this instant is happening, inspections are being waived. It's impacting the market of the houses, the prices, right? So it's kind of like a catch-22. One thing changes, the other one goes up. The other one changes, this one goes down. So it's like either way you do it, you slice it, you're stuck in the middle, and you just have to deal with it. I hope that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, no, and is that you believe tied to certain members on the Boston City Council? Did they, are they still there, or is there?
I'm not sure how that plays out, and as an attorney, I am going to remain non-political. And so I mean, it's a crisis that we're dealing with. Another crisis that we're dealing with is homelessness. There's so many landlords that are trying to evict the tenants because they bought a property, interest rates are high, mortgage is not being met. We are dealing with tenants that have been living here for 15 years and they're like, well, I got no place to go. So it's like, depending on who and where the property is, then you have activists that jump in, right? Those are people that are like rent control and things of that nature, and calling the typical businessman that we're talking about that's working their butt off, has a full-time job, does a part-time job on the side, purchased a property to have some passive income, whatever the reasoning behind might be, bought a multifamily. It wants to evict the tenant now so he can fix it up a little bit and rent it so he can have more income coming in. Now, this person is made out to be a predator, right? Because he's buying a property. Oh my God, he's raising the rents. But isn't that what America is all about? Like, it's business, right? If you have the funds, you have the loans to be able to buy it, you should be able to buy it and move on and do what you need to do. But based on the problem that we have, which is like a homelessness problem, specifically here in Massachusetts, and the rents being so high and so on and so forth, we're dealing with an issue where there's homeless shelters that are completely full. People are being evicted and they're being putting on like airplane hangars where they're being transported to. It's a mess. And then we have, and again, I'm going to just peek on it just a little bit, and then I'm going to let it be. We also have these free legal services that are sitting in court that the tenants have the ability to get because the tenant's income might be a little bit lower than the landlord's income. So they have the ability to be able to pick these people up, and these people's MO is basically to try to drag the case out and try to get as much money as they can from the landlord. I've seen these things where they could have settled out, in my experience, no issues, but the attorney for the tenant, the free attorney, doesn't want to settle because at the end they're looking for more time. You kind of see what I mean? So it's like an uphill battle sometimes when you run into these folks, and there's a lot of these folks now, and the table that I'm referring to keeps growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. Now there's tables for the landlord also, but the landlords, you can see, have a higher threshold to cross in order to be able to qualify for these services because they own a property, right? So already you're in a different income level, so you're kind of being, you're not, you just don't qualify. For a tenant, do you own any assets? Do you own a home? No. Oh, okay. So you qualify your income. So here you go. Here's your counsel. And these people jump in and file, answers, discovery, counterclaims. And here comes the lovely one, jury trial. They never do a jury trial. They get pushed out 7, 8, 9 months down the line. That's the delay tactic, right? Now the landlord hires me, and it's like, hey, I want to their file discovery. I need responses. Now I have to spend exponential amount of hours to try to see if I can respond to all this stuff, because if I don't, I'll get slammed by the judge that says you're ordered to respond to this. So I got to get this done. So now I have to have this conversation with the landlord. Hey, it's going to cost you XYZ money and time to litigate this out, or versus if we can try to see if we can come to some kind of resolution and agreement between ourselves, and we can resolve this by signing off on it and having a judge sign off on it, making it a court order. Specifically, try to get a judgment, an agreement for judgment.
And you tell me, but it appears that you have essentially a system that is set up for those who have a lot of money, right? And then it provides support for people who have no money, but really the people who have no money are not really getting truly helped. They're only actually feeding the coffers of these, legal services firms to kind of keep the system going.
That's right.
As opposed to really addressing the underlying issues in the system, which is squeezing the middle class, is squeezing the working class people who are just trying to, make things happen. Yep. And you're actually creating an underclass to permanently keep them at the bottom, to only, basically, churn the wheels of the system that continues actually ultimately to oppress them. Am I being too dystopian, or does that make sense to you?
It does make sense to me, but ultimately, Talib, the way it comes down to is what? It's this, right? At the end of the day, it's this. Everything revolves around this. It's unfortunate, but that's what it is. So it's about the budget. Those attorneys we're referring to, they have a budget. The more signatures they get, the more they can, submit to where they need to submit it and get an approval. Look, we have this many people out, and we need more money, more funds. So it's just kind of one of those. I've seen this from COVID till now. It is unbelievable the amount of force that they have now that is just representing these tenants. Which, again, don't get me wrong, I represent tenants as well, but I try to do the right thing, right? If it's in the best interest of the tenant, then you should be doing this or pushing them to do it. But what I see sometimes, which is, again, are you kidding me? It's like, that is not in the best interest. Whose best interest is that in? Not the tenant. Right. So if you're representing the tenant in that area, why is this being dragged out so long? When we could have had an agreement with the tenant. If you would have actually brought it to the tenant, they would have agreed to it. It could have been a resolution. It could have been handled. But now we're pushing it down. And I get it. They're busy too. So they got to push the can down the line. Essentially, that's my experience with them. They just push the can down the line. And then essentially they'll either settle it or we're going to have to do the dance. But most of the time, they don't do the dance.
Tell me, Jahangir, what is the situation in Boston relating? You mentioned homelessness. How about issues of crime, particularly youth violence? How has that impacted housing prices in particular, and the challenges for the small business community there in Boston?
So crime, I think, is actually on the lower spectrum. Again, it all depends on what media you're listening to, what social media, right, forum you're getting this information from, because there's some saying that these things are not even being told. Some are broadcasting and some are not. My understanding on situations like this, depending on like the blighted areas, I guess, the rents are on the lower end. And with that being said, I see that these neighborhoods tend to have, federally funded housing. So like Section 8, if you're familiar with those. And then Section 8 ends up paying pretty decent as far as like a 2 bedroom or a 3 bedroom. So that is what I find is happening there. As far as the crime, it happens. It happens all the time. And you'll be surprised when I look at some of the stuff that I get, the amount of police reports that I see. Um, my understanding is there are programs. Like I said, I didn't grow up in like the nicest neighborhood, and we had programs that we went to just to be off the streets. And there are programs here that have that. You just need these folks to be able to get them in these proper programs. There's a program called Leap. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. I was engaged in that as a mentor, and it's a fantastic program that helps youth, that come from houses that are not stable and so on and so forth. And it puts them in a situation where they're ready to go for success. They pair them up with professionals. And, I've had one-on-ones with this guy. The kid that I was mentoring is going to college. So there's so many programs that are amazing out here. It's just finding the right program. Now, we have so many tools that are available to us, like the internet, chat GBT, Siri, all these little tools, AI tools that are available. And we should be utilizing these to be able to get these things done.
You mentioned AI because I think, and a lot of people, are starting to wake up to the opportunities that AI can provide for, solving issues such as youth violence, housing, unaffordability, if you will, addressing issues of the broken, judicial system, as you talked a little bit about. Can you, go into a little bit of details about how AI is impacting your particular field, how you're using it in your practice, your business, and what you might recommend to others out there for those who are considering how to use AI?
Sure. So AI, I use it in a variety of different ways. I use the chat GBT on my thing on my phone for personal stuff. It's amazing. It's the one that you have to pay for. It's not the free one. The free one is, I think, limited. The one that you pay for monthly is amazing. It'll write up documents for you. Well, I don't use it for documents. It'll write up emails for me, compact it, correct it, make it more cordial if I have to. As an attorney, we're always in a rush. So if I can find things that can streamline my process, that would be fantastic. So let me give you an example. I will come up with like an email that I'll draft up, and I'll have it edited just to make it better, right? Because I don't have to sit there and read it 6 times to be like, well, this doesn't sound right. And then when I look at the final project, I can tweak it. So it's like having a personal assistant that kind of helps me. Let me give you another example. I use LexisNexis for my legal research. So when I'm doing like litigation work and so on and so forth, and I'm doing case law research, I would be using LexisNexis. LexisNexis has an AI tool. And if you're an attorney and you are a litigator, you need case laws to be able to back up your arguments. So that is an amazing tool. But again, you can't just blindsidedly rely on AI, right? Because there's so many cases that actually come down the pike when they went to the, SJC, where it's like, AI gave a citation off a law or a case law that wasn't correct. So now I've seen lawyers get sanctioned with regards to using AI tools and not having to verify, or what attorneys call shepherdize, to make sure that the law is still current and has not been overturned. So that needs to be done, right? Because sometimes laws get changed. Our country is evolving law. So each case law sets a precedence as to going forward. And sometimes those cases are reversed. So that being said, that needs to happen. So you can't blindsidedly just rely on an AI tool. You 100% need to be able to learn how to use it and then figure out and verify that the information that is kicking out is in fact real. That goes for every AI tool, even chat GBT. Let me give you an example. I have kids, which I am teaching, I guess, math. I haven't done math in years. Okay. So now I'm sitting here teaching them how to do fractions and so on and so forth. And I don't know how to do these, specifically the method that the teachers or the school is requiring, because we grew up in a different world and we were taught a different method. So you better believe I use, AI tools to help me out with that, because I don't know how the teachers want it done nowadays. And, I'll tell them the answer and it's like, that's not how the teacher taught me. And I'm like, well, let's figure out how the teacher taught you by using these tools. So I highly recommend these tools to be able to better enhance yourself and make yourself more educated, but always verify wherever the source is, where this information is coming from. You can't just blindsided rely on anything. And that should be, with everything. Like, you hear a rumor, you shouldn't just roll with it. You should be able to verify if that's in fact true or not, right? So that's with anything in the world. AI should not be any different. You got to verify, make sure the information is accurate.
And of course, a lot of lawyers are beginning to incorporate the use of AI in both research, as you say, email drafting, proposal writing, any number of ways. Even as you said, helping them out personally with their families, and that's something that we are doing at Abe Legal. We're training people, particularly lawyers, on how to use AI, how to maximize the use of AI for revenue creation. And we'd be happy. We've launched a workshop, and so anybody's interested in taking a look at that kind of workshop to see how we can help you to maximize your workflow and revenue flow, definitely put your contact into the chat, and we can follow back up with you or give us a call, and we'd be happy to assist you. Let me also kind of throw a topical question, and that is the death of commentator, youth activist, if you will, Charlie Kirk. And I'll say, just for the record, I didn't know Charlie's name that well. In fact, I didn't even know what he looked like until after he was assassinated. But I had heard that he, like some other commentators I began just recently checking out, such as Candace Owens and also Tucker Carlson, was beginning to kind of have some thoughts and reservations about what was happening in Palestine and in Gaza, and it began to openly criticize the government of Israel. And it seems to me that kind of two things are happening, Jahangir. On the one hand, you have supposed liberals or Democrats, if you will, making statements about Kirk and having themselves be met with terminations or be met with things that are unpleasant for them, and then you'll have, on the other hand, people who are kind of trying to say, oh, that he was he was my buddy, he was the best friend of of Israel. You have basically kind of these two extremes, and it seems to me it's like almost kind of a manufactured conflict to once again divide people. For folks who are out there in Boston who are thinking about making posts, what would you advise that they consider before making a post about this or any other kind of controversial matter? Do they have the right to say anything and not have it be used against them, especially in the context of their employment? Or is an employment a private relationship between two individuals, where individual A, meaning the employer, can basically terminate you for no reason at all, so long as it's not a bad reason?
Right. So that depends on the state, right? So certain states are at will state where you absolutely don't need a reason. You can terminate just because you want to terminate. Though that's Massachusetts is one of them. It's an at will state. So if I wanted to terminate my paralegal, I can do it. I don't need a reason. So that's number one. Number two, Abe, I've learned from a long time of being involved in the legal industry and being who I am and my background and my culture that I come from, that religion is one of those topics that I stay away from. As far as discussing it in open forums. I have my own personal beliefs, and everybody's entitled to their own personal beliefs. My understanding of this whole situation is be aware of your surroundings. I tell my kids all the time. My kids are in karate, and I'll just come out of left field and I'll smack one of my kids on the side of the head and be like, wait, how come you don't know what you're surrounding, right? Because you're going to karate, they teach you be aware. So how are you not aware that there's a hand coming when you've been in karate for over 2 years now? You should be able to know these kind of things. So again, be aware of your surrounding, your environment. And the environment that we live in is very different. Specifically, some of the rights that we have come to know that are given to us are not given to us anymore, or have been revoked in a certain instance, or it's been put under the umbrella detained for a little while because we are investigating. So put yourself in a situation where you understand the environment. With that being said, everything is politically driven here. We know this. We know money is politically driven here. We know religions are politically driven here. Again, when it comes down to these aspects, I just believe in a divine power. I think religions all talk or essentially the same thing, and then the actual religion segregation is man-made. Does that kind of make sense? So the
But I
divine
would say, wouldn't you say that, in this case, it's not really religion, but it was his, and maybe he was assassinated for, some say, because he was a conservative. But it seems to me a lot of evidence is suggesting that he was assassinated because of his evolution, his evolving, respect for the lives of the Palestinian people, who are being oppressed, because some people want to, as kind of control the land, which has money tied to it, and are willing to even kill their own people, in order to get that land. And he saw that these people were having an undue influence on U.S. policy, against the interests of what he and others had campaigned about, which was America first. It was becoming America second. And he began to speak out about that, and then just within hours or days after him speaking out on certain podcasts, the young man is assassinated. But
Right.
yet we want to try to, a lot of even our young people are falling into the traps of making statements, talking about some of the past statements that he had made,
Yep.
as opposed to perhaps focusing on his evolution.
Right. Right. And again, being what we're exactly talking about, I'm going to keep my answer as it is, because the minute you start talking about a certain directions, years go up and so on and so forth. So I remain neutral in this, if you can quote it, so to speak, or the favorite attorney response, which is it depends.
Absolutely. No, I get
I don't
that.
want to be that person that gets assassinated, if you know what I'm talking about, Abe. I'm
Hey,
good.
hey,
Kids, man.
hold on. I know you don't like to talk about religion, but you and I,
Or politics, my friend, too. All right, because
absolutely.
we already know.
I'm just saying that we don't, as we don't, as Muslims, we don't fear death.
We
We
don't.
know that death is actually, especially if you die for your beliefs, that's a victory. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Because you are
Yes.
getting exactly what you want, which is paradise, which is we all
Right.
hopefully desire paradise. And
Right.
the
But then it
money
also
that we
comes
get
down
in
to
this
it's like,
country, or this world rather, is nothing compared to that. But, I agree with you that, and this is something that I think we should be teaching our youth, is that we have to be, moderates. That's what this faith does teach us. And I think that you can see, the most successful people, are generally those who, stay and keep a moderate, perspective, about
absolutely.
business, about politics, about faith. Those are the folks who are the most successful. And someone who has evolved my position on that, I can say definitely that it is certainly things that I think the young people can begin to practice more, if you will. Would you not agree?
Oh, absolutely. I 100% think religion does keep you grounded. It keeps you humble. It has that open cord, so to speak, like a charger. I often feel if I end up not keeping my prayers that I keep and maintain, I feel like I'm not connected. It's kind of one of those charging cords for, like, I guess one of those Tesla cars, right? That you connect, you get that juice charged up. I firmly believe that having that in your life keeps you grounded, keeps you sane, and keeps you on the right track. I also believe that, There's evil out there in this world, and the powers are out there. And the minute you let your guard down, then those powers come and try to, elicit you in a wrong direction, or try to make you go into a wrong direction. If you stay grounded, and again, I say the religion, I'm Muslim, so that religion, again, in my opinion, and I've read the Quran several times, in my opinion, the way I look at it, the book is the book is the book, and all books bring the same exact message, okay, which is basically what we talk about: doing the right thing, not cheating, not stealing, not things of that nature. Respect your parents, respect people, respect thy neighbor. These are all common things, right? So if you stick to these things, then yes, at the end, as a Muslim, when you do these things, we are not afraid of death because we have done the right things. But if you're out there being an extremist and going and taking justice in your own hand and trying to kill people, well, that's not the right thing. And that there's a justice legal power out there, and it's called the justice system, and that needs to be engaged. The minute you take your own, own justice, so to speak here, then you have taken the power from the higher being to do justice for you. So now you're basically letting the other person do justice to you. So it's like, the way I see it, the higher power says, you want to handle your own? Fine. Don't come to me after. You kind of see what I'm saying? So no, I'd rather let the higher power deal with it. And I'm just going to do the right thing, which is forgive and forget. And I'm going to move on and do the right thing. Now, all these books also teach you that once, twice, but the third time, you got to be like, all right, now I'm the stupid one that I can't keep doing this, right? Because then God will ask you that too. Hey, you got a brain. This happened once, not twice. And the third time, you got a brain. You got to use that too. That's what I mean when I'm saying you got to be cognizant of your environment where you are, right? Like I can't go into the airport and start saying, I love God. I'm not going to start going in there saying Allah or Judah or start screaming these names because I know that's not the right environment, right? So you go in there, you see a police officer come up to you and ask you, can I see your license and registration? Why do you have to be that person? It's like, no, why? Why? Tell me why. Because you're entitled? Why? This guy is doing this. Maybe there's a bad apple. Maybe. And I agree there are, right? But this guy is doing this for what? For the protection of the general community.
Right.
That includes you.
Exactly.
Because one, you're not on this side, and it's the other way around. Then you want the police officer to interrupt and be like, hey, protect me. That's what they're there to do.
That's
People
right.
don't fathom the thought about the fact that if this world did not have this, oh my God, like literally you need to be like a kung fu to master, to just walk down the street.
Well, it would be anarchy without police.
That's right. You can't walk down the street without getting your watch stolen. Like
exactly. And that's definitely something that I think a lot of young people, even I've had to moderate my own evolution understanding about the position of law enforcement. And so, and there's a lot to be said. And I think this will really bring us to the conclusion, as we, basically give advice to our younger selves.
Yes.
Let me ask, what piece of advice would you end this conversation with if you were going to give some advice to your younger 17-year-old self? And I don't know how old your children are, but maybe can consider advice to your children.
10 and 7, they're too young. But yes, I never shut up with my kids. They get advices all the time. Whatever they listen to.
All right, give us 3 points of advice that you give to your younger self or your children to be your children as they are moving.
Number one advice would be self-confidence. Okay, self-confidence comes with a couple of different things. Like I said, I think prayer is huge. Having a sense of belonging is huge. Whether that's at a YMCA, whether that's at a gym, whether that's at a basketball team, whether that's at a mosque or at a at a synagogue or a church. Regardless, sense of belonging makes you understand and have a confidence in yourself. Do not listen to the naysayers. And everybody says this, right? Because I see these big stars, their speeches, and just have faith in yourself and don't but honestly, there is truth to it. I've had people tell me, hey, like I said, I didn't have the best path in law school or before law school. I've had my hiccups because, I came from the background that I came from. With that being said, I never gave up. People told me, oh, maybe it's better if you drop out of law school because you were on academic probation. And the reason why I was on academic probation in law school is because my father got cancer and I had to deal with that issue dealing with, and we didn't think he was going to make it. So dealing with that, going to school full-time and attending school full-time, law school full-time, it was quite a bit. And I had to take it off about it's about 10 years or so between my bachelor and my law starting. So I had to completely relearn how to even memorize like mnemonics and so on and so forth. But you better believe after that AP, I zoned in and I got, I passed my bar exam on the first time, passed my ethics exams, no issues. I passed the school with honors. So again, do not listen to the naysayers. Just because one person tells you, oh, the property class is ridiculously hard, it's 4 credits, that doesn't mean it's going to be hard for you. That means it was hard for that person. It might be easy for you. But the minute you start saying, oh, that's a hard class, your brain is already on that wavelength and you're going to go down that negative path where you're like, oh, it's a hard class for him. It's going to be a hard class for me too. No, I've actually had the mentality of like, you know what? Tell me no. I want you to tell me no, because guess what? I'm going to prove you wrong and I'm going to do it with his power. And guess what? The only one that can say no to me, that's it. I don't care. You can tell me no. You can tell me I'll see you in court. I'll see you in court. No problem. And you can tell me no all you want. But when I get it done, I'm not even going to be that arrogant one. All I'm going to be like, I didn't do anything. Thank you, God. That's it. That's the mentality. Because at the end of the day, when you do things like that, then yes, we're not scared of that. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going out there, like I said, in boats and ships and saying Allahu Akbar and God. You gotta know your environment, right? You gotta understand where you are. And you get that by being socially put into societies that is a mix. I think that wholeheartedly, growing up in a situation where I did, it was a salad bowl. Okay. It wasn't like it was a mixture of all different colors, religion, creeds, you name it. And that made me more adaptable to my clientele. I can speak with people from all different regions of the world, religions, none of that. I've had people tell me again, they're like, oh, where are you from? Like, I'm from Pakistan. I'm like, oh, you're Muslim? Yes. Oh, I'm Jewish. I'm like, fantastic. Nice to meet you. Now, I don't know where their underlying tone was when they told me and made it a point to let me know. But my thing is, you're, regardless to me, a human being, and you're sitting here in front of me. So your religion, your gender, your race doesn't matter. You're a person who came to me as a human that needs help, and I'm going to help you as a human, which is what I took the oath to do. When I became an attorney, I didn't say I'm helping these people only, or I'm helping these. I said I was going to help the people that need the help, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Excellent. Well, I think that's excellent advice to give to your younger self and your children as they evolve. And we wanted to just say how grateful we are for you, Brother Jahangir, going to the lengths that you've gone through to be available to share your input, provide advice, and to help clients, not just the one that we were able to connect you with, but all those. And we say that if you need any help relating to, landlord tenant issues, business property matters, housing, personal injury, you name it. If you need help from a lawyer in particularly Boston or Massachusetts in general, we have a team with the Zaheer Law Firm who can assist you, and give us a call at Abe Legal. Check us out at abe.legal, and we can schedule you with an appointment fairly quickly and get your issue resolved. We appreciate you taking the time again, and we pray that you and your family have a wonderful weekend, and we look forward to having you back on our show in the upcoming weeks, months. Hopefully not no longer than the year. All right.
We'll be here. I'm here whenever you guys are ready. It's a pleasure speaking with you guys. Thank you for having me. One little final tidbit I was going to add to what you said, and I was thinking about this while you were talking, is that from every mistake, and we all make them, there's a lesson to be learned. If you didn't learn a lesson from that mistake, go back, think about it. Trust me when I tell you, every single mistake, if you ponder about it, there's a lesson to be learned. And if you learn that lesson, then it wasn't a mistake. Then it was a learning. Okay, it was a learning situation. You learned something out of it. So you made it into something positive. Okay, if you don't learn from it, it's a waste of time. You're going to do it again. Anytime you come across a hurdle or a mistake that you made, sit there, own up to it, understand where you messed up, learn from it, and move forward. That's what I have to say.
Wonderful advice. We appreciate you and wish you a wonderful day or evening. Ciao.
Thank you so much. Have a great one.